Thank you. My name's Perianne Boring. I'm the founder and CEO of the Digital Chamber. We're a nonprofit organization. We're headquartered in Washington, D.C. We're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. We were one of the first organizations in the world to advocate for the acceptance and use of digital assets and blockchain-based technologies. I personally am very bullish about the future of crypto and DeFi and Bitcoin and blockchain, and I think this is going to be the cardinal year for the crypto space. At the end of last year, I made a prediction that 2024 would go down as the cardinal year. This was a tweet that I posted in the beginning of the year, just saying that this is the year we're going to go mainstream. So just to put a caveat on what I mean by the cardinal year and mainstream acceptance. Not necessarily mainstream use where everybody is onboarded on-chain, but where the collective consciousness has really accepted the promise of blockchain technology. So let's just talk a little bit about Bitcoin history, because it all started with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin was first introduced around 2008 and 2009. The innovation of Bitcoin, the title of the Bitcoin white paper, which I'm sure most of you have probably read, hopefully, at this point, is Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. This was really a proposal by Satoshi Nakamoto, released as a gift to the world. It's open source technology, it's permissionless, anyone can use it and participate in the network. The first several years of Bitcoin, the community was nothing like the community that we have today. It was very small, very technical, a lot of cypherpunks, a lot of people ideologically aligned to this idea of an electronic cash system, but it was really just an idea that people were starting to test. 2013 is what I call the breakout year for Bitcoin. That was the year that Bitcoin broke out into the international scene. I first learned about Bitcoin in 2011. I previously worked in the US House of Representatives as an economic policy advisor. So for me, when I first learned about Bitcoin, this alternative virtual currency, as someone working in economic policy, this was just a fascinating concept that there was this internet currency that wasn't controlled by central banks or governments or any type of collective party, but this open network. That was an interesting idea to me. But as I followed the technology in very early days, it was, is this really going to work? Are people really going to use this thing? It's kind of crazy. It's like magic internet money. Is this actually going to be implemented in a real world scenario? And that happened for the first time in 2013. That was the year that the country of Cyprus was going through its bailout with the European Union. So it was being debated, are they going to leave the EU? Are they going to come off the euro? Kind of what's going to happen for this little tiny country of Cyprus? And in that time of economic uncertainty, the people of Cyprus started buying Bitcoin. And it was really the first time that we saw Bitcoin, not just this idea where people were playing around with it and buying pizzas with it. It was the first time we were seeing it for the being used in a real world scenario as an alternative monetary system, an alternative currency, an alternative to the fiat system. And it was that event in Cyprus where Bitcoin hit international headlines for the first time in the world. So 2013 was that breakout year where we really started to be used in the real world. It started the year, Bitcoin was about $13. It peaked at $1,300 during the summer when that event in Cyprus was going on. So that was really when Bitcoin came on the scene. It wasn't 2 years later, in 2015, that Ethereum was introduced to the world, Ethereum being the first Turing-complete blockchain. Ethereum really opened up the door for smart contracts, decentralized applications, a whole new host of applications for cryptocurrency above and beyond Bitcoin as a store of value. A few years later, 2017, by that time, thousands of new cryptocurrencies had been launched. Many were launched off of the Ethereum blockchain, but also new layer ones were introduced. We had a boom. There are lots of new innovations coming on the scene. Obviously, the market can't handle thousands of cryptocurrencies. Who needs thousands? You don't need thousands. There'll be a handful that end up being used in commercial settings. And so 2022 is what we really saw as a shakeout phase. A lot of protocols that didn't have real utility, a lot of companies that didn't have a great business model, a lot of investors that didn't have good investment thesis, all got washed out. We all lived through the crypto winter over the past couple of years. It was pretty brutal. If you're still here, congratulations for surviving. Congratulations for being alive. That's truly an accomplishment today. So 2022 was that shakeout phase where a lot of just businesses didn't make it, a lot of projects didn't make it. And so here we are in 2024, what I believe will be the Cardinal year. If you apply an S-curve analysis, which is what this graph is, to Bitcoin, it says that we will have mainstream acceptance, or 90%. It's predicted that 90% adoption by the year 2029. Again, that's applying an S-curve analysis to the Bitcoin network. So what are some of the factors that are driving what I believe is mainstream acceptance of the cryptocurrency industry? The first one is this is a superior technology. Blockchains are more efficient, more safe, more secure to use than traditional rails. We will see cryptocurrency and blockchain technology being implemented for a wide variety of use cases and applications. It started with money as a store of value. Bitcoin's been called a digital gold. It's superior to gold for the digital era. Blockchains are superior technology to transact in a digital age over the internet. The second main factor driving acceptance is access points are being unlocked. Just a couple of months ago, spot Bitcoin ETFs were approved in the United States and are now launching. These have been some of the most successful, if not arguably the most successful exchange-traded products ever listed in the United States. We have billion-dollar inflows coming into the ETFs every day in the US. While we've had ETFs trading in many other jurisdictions around the world, having this type of institutional inflow coming into our industry is going to have a massive impact on adoption. Not only is just more purchasers coming in, those resources are going to be used to fund critical efforts to drive adoption of this technology globally. The third factor really driving adoption is geopolitics. As an American, I can tell you that what's going on in the United States and geopolitical events around the world do impact just normal and average people. The number one issue for Americans today is inflation. Many of us can't keep up, live paycheck to paycheck, and feel like they're not going to have the same standard of living as their parents or the generations that came before them. Bitcoin is being seen. Many people are flocking to Bitcoin as a way to save themselves from inflation, these geopolitical events. And we saw it going back to 2013 when the people of Cyprus started buying Bitcoin in a moment of uncertainty. As we are seeing the world change globally, Bitcoin is a place many investors are going to protect their wealth. And the fourth being education. There's still a lot of education that needs to happen in order to have a safe and functioning cryptocurrency ecosystem, but it's so much easier today to figure out how to use this technology than it was when I first started a decade ago. When I was navigating the Bitcoin space for the first time, there were only a couple people talking about it on YouTube. Not necessarily the most credible resources, but there's many universities that have cryptocurrency curriculum. I had the honor of teaching at Georgetown University in DC. I taught blockchain technology for the first time at Georgetown. There's Harvard and MIT have free classes available that they've released on the internet as well. The more educational material comes available, the easier it is for more people to be onboarded into our community. So those are just the factors I believe that are driving mainstream adoption. Let's look at what some of the data says in the network itself. Today, there's over 13 million Bitcoin wallet addresses that hold 0.01% of Bitcoin or more. That's roughly $660 in today's term, with the price being at $66,000. So over 13 million people, or there's 13 million addresses, have more than a real amount of cryptocurrency savings. Of that, so of long-term holders, 31% of outstanding Bitcoin supply, so that's out of all the outstanding Bitcoin, 31%, which represents about 240 billion, has been held for 5 years or more. 5 years or more. So 31% of wallet address haven't moved for 5 years or more, which shows that there's a long-term conviction for the people who are holding Bitcoin today. And there's 85,000 Bitcoin wallet addresses that have not sold since 2023. So this shows an extremely strong conviction in the technology. Sometimes you'll hear people say this is all about speculation. Most people using this technology are just trying to make money or move. That's not what the data says on chain, at least on the Bitcoin network itself. One more thing about adoption. We are so early. It may seem like we're at least a decade into this saga, but we are just starting to scratch the surface of really understanding how this technology is going to impact businesses and commerce and many other applications. Today, the cryptocurrency market cap is a little over $2 trillion. We believe this is about 1% of the addressable market. Bitcoin, this electronic cash system, it makes payments way more efficient and cheaper and safer. That's an $8 trillion industry that will be impacted by this technology. Gold, that's a $12 trillion market cap and ecosystem. Bitcoin is superior to gold. It just makes more sense in the digital era. Instead of carrying around rocks, you can store your wealth in a private key and memorize it in your head, and you can travel the world safely with your wealth and no one even needs to know. And you can even look at money supply with M2 and global bonds. The addressable market is in the hundreds of trillions. And we're only at a 2.4 trillion market cap today. We have a long way to go, and there's a lot of opportunity for the growth of this technology. So let's talk a little bit about what is the value of Bitcoin. So we all know what the price is. Whatever is trading for on the cryptocurrency markets, it's trading about $66,000 today. So that's the price of Bitcoin. That's what people are buying and selling it for on the market. But what is the value? How do you value the Bitcoin network? I have two graphs. These were shared with me from Off the Chain Capital. This is an investment firm that we represent at the Digital Chamber, and these are some of the charts that they use for investment purposes. If you apply a historical trend-aligned analysis to Bitcoin, so you just take the historical price of Bitcoin and put it on a trend line, it has the current price valued at $136,000. So today it's 66. The model, this particular model is telling us it's valued at 136. This has an 88% correlation to the historical price of Bitcoin. So this model is telling us that Bitcoin today is significantly undervalued. And just while we're talking about the price of Bitcoin, we just celebrated the halving a couple of days ago. So we have a halving every 4 years. Does anyone remember what the halving was, what the price of Bitcoin was at the last halving? 4 years ago, what do you guess the price of Bitcoin was at the last halving? 18? 10? Y'all are very bullish. It was $8,600. Oh, but are you quoting it in your local currency? Okay, in US dollars. $8,600. I had a moment when we're at the halvings happening, and I'm like, what was the price 4 years ago? I look it up. We have come so far. The next graph that people use to measure the value of the Bitcoin blockchain is stock to flow. Stock to flow has Bitcoin currently valued at 100,000 today, and it has it at 1 million by 2029. That's when Bitcoin's expected to reach 90% adoption. So obviously, I'm very bullish about what the future of Bitcoin and blockchain and digital assets is, but there are real risks to adoption. And these are some of the risks that I'm personally working on and my team is at the Digital Chamber. The first is censorship. Bitcoin was introduced as an open source technology that's permissionless, that's free and accessible for all. And many other cryptocurrencies and layer ones share that value of the first blockchain of Bitcoin. There are governments, there are regulators and people who want full control over these networks and want to censor them. If you take away one of the core features of this technology, what value will it truly add to society? I would argue it'd be significantly diminished. The second is bad policy and regulation. This goes on with the first point that I made. Bad policy and bad regulation, like censoring networks or regulations that are impossible to implement, could have significant impacts on this ecosystem and community being able to build. And the third is political risk, where you have political parties who have their own agendas and apply that to our community. I'm going to share one quick story to wrap up. I know our time here is short today. One of the biggest political risks we are facing in the United States is a full-on ban on crypto in the United States of America. Today, there is a bill, a piece of legislation that's pending in the US Senate that would ban crypto in the United States. It's not called that. It's called the Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act. And this bill's sponsor, her name is Elizabeth Warren. You may have heard of her. She is telling everyone that crypto has an AML problem and her bill will fix this regulatory issue. The reality is it's a backdoor ban. It would make it impossible to operate virtual currency businesses legally in the United States. It would also make the use of self-hosted or self-custody unhosted wallets illicit in the US. And this is not far off from becoming reality. There's 19 members of the US Senate that have sponsored this bill. So roughly 20% of the Senate today is on record of the position that we should ban cryptocurrencies. And it has bipartisan support. It has Republicans and Democrats on it. This is just one example of some of the political risk of bad regulation and bad policy that's out there. If you are interested in supporting our work at the Digital Chamber to fight not only this bill, but other efforts that would restrict people's access to this open source technology, you can find us at digitalchamber.org. We are a nonprofit organization, so we're fully supported by donations from the community. And we're here to make sure that this technology is available to the people of the world so we can all engage in open commerce in the digital age.